your thoughts whenever you hear poem?
I get kind of nervous, like they're expecting me to understand exactly what it's saying, and I don't usually, so...
I'd say it's intimidating a little bit, just because if you're asked to actually interpret the poem, there's really no, I guess, teachers always tell you there's no right way to interpret it, so...
So whenever you hear haiku, and whenever someone says, write a haiku, or write a poem, what does that make you feel?
Like you have to be good enough to write a poem, and that's kind of hard and kind of scary.
Oh yeah.
I agree.
So what exactly is a haiku? A haiku is traditionally thought of as being a collection of 575 syllables, but really that's not always the case. A haiku really is a poetic expression of unique thought. It's a way that an artist can get across his or her ideologies, talking about seasonal references that may involve a reference to the sun, the moon, any sort of nature reference in which the poet, as a human being, can feel involved. However, haiku also expresses, most importantly, an interesting new idea that only the author can really say. Because after all, what is the use of saying something that has already been said? And that's the whole entire purpose of originality. With the artist having this originality, that makes the haiku open to everyone, with a few tools such as juxtaposition. For example, a common tool of juxtaposition may be a phrase such as opposites attract, ice and fire. These two ideas bring about a whole new idea and a whole new symbol for the readers.
So, to explain to us why haiku and other poems can sometimes be intimidating to the reader, here's Laken Brooks.
So the question that I want to ask everyone is, why are we so scared of poetry in our modern world? Poetry, something that is an artistic form of communication, should hopefully be available to everyone. And with that in mind, we have to think that there's a fear of structure. We as humans are kind of afraid of being bogged down, and if we have set guidelines by a structure, for example, the traditional 5-7-5 rule of haiku, then we think it's unattainable. We think, well, if I can't meet that standard, then certainly I can't be a good poet. But really, that's not the case. In our really hectic world, we always are thinking about data. We're thinking about numbers and words and letters, and if we think about it in that formulaic way, we can get some math anxiety whenever we think about this standard. But haikus don't have to fit this mold, and instead of seeing our world in such a hectic way, let's listen to Andrew Siva tell us a little bit about how we can slow down and really observe our world.
So, haiku is an invitation to contemplate, a way to apply your own personal feelings towards natural observations. These observations, which have been made by the poet, can manifest themselves in a multitude of ways when we feel them permeating through our minds. Though haiku can invoke a spiritual sense of peacefulness and even enlightenment, they achieve this oftentimes through the simple use of everyday objects or natural items such as trees, flowers, or clouds. Haiku encourages us to think about the natural world in relation to, and also in combination with, the spiritual and the existential world.
There's a moment of profound unclarity. When things really seem unclear, no matter how closely you look at them. This is a challenge for any human being who lives in a hasty world. For we as people only have 80 years on this earth, when trees oftentimes have 3 or 4 times that time to live and to be ancient. So sometimes it's really easy to be blinded to even the most beautiful and simple of minute things. However, haiku enable us to get outside of this shifted perception and to remove ourselves from this natural situation, reorient our thoughts, and be able to find some sort of clarity in the form of writing. This writing oftentimes undergoes some sort of evaluative purpose, but really the purpose of a haiku, more than just meeting a standard 5-7-5 format, is to offer humans, the author and the reader, a chance to engage in natural and personal introspection, and to make things come clear for them that they otherwise may not take the time to do in life.
This juxtaposition of the haiku acts as a microcosm of the way in which koans operate. As the basis for many individuals' core spiritual grounding, the set of koans that connects to Buddhism is filled with contradictions and juxtaposed ideas. We are left reading the haiku with the same type of awestruck wonder that someone reading a koan and attempting to interpret it for their own situation often feels. Certainly this mystery does not always answer our questions, but rather consistently poses more questions. This, however, allows for us to apply the lessons from either the koan or the haiku into our own spiritual paths.
What does this mean for us as individuals? Well, this juxtaposition brings into mind that we can see even simple objects in entirely new ways, and those simple objects seen with a new light cause us to reevaluate ourselves and, as was previously stated, our own spiritual enlightenment.
So one of the marvelous aspects of the haiku that is quite different from a lot of other forms of poetry is that just like the way that the water refreshes the sediment at the bottom and it brings along the different fish and other life forms through the rivers and through the lakes, the haiku itself is also constantly changing and is always in sort of a constant state of being refreshed. So for example, we have the mastermind of Basho, who for all intents and purposes essentially invented the haiku, but now we've seen that the role of the haiku itself has drastically changed from being that of observational and just looking into observing of religious ceremonies, of tea houses, of things like that. But now in 2015, we have haiku poets who are writing about instances of social injustice in Arizona in terms of immigration reform, in terms of things happening in Ferguson. It's being used in feminist circles. So really the role of the haiku has gone from that of being just sort of looking in at society, but now we're really looking in society and thinking, okay, well, how can we use this poem as a medium to help show how we can change?
What this means to us, as all potential haiku and other poetry writers, is that we can leave a mark in this ever-moving train of haiku thought. That the evolving aspect of the haiku and of the poem makes it open to change and thus makes it open to us.
So the Ginkgo walk is what you call the time period before you are actually at the site where you're going to think about your field project and your haiku and whatever else you're going to meditate on or observe. And to me, what the Ginkgo walk personally means is it's really a chance to sort of prepare yourself and to think about what exactly you're going to be reflecting on that day, whether it's going to be more scientific, more natural observations, or maybe it's more spiritual observations. It's also a chance to get into the mindset of being relaxed so that you're able to fully interact with your space in the most productive and in the most relaxed manner as possible.
Before you go to your actual site of meditation, whether that be a temple, whether that be a church, whether that be your own backyard, somewhere where you can be relaxed, it is very important to get into that healthy mindset that you will be able to be observant and where you'll be able to actually meditate in that space, where you'll be able to notice even the smallest of things that you've never been able to notice before. Plus, just being able to appreciate the journey itself is something that brings us to the grand message of life. Life itself is a collection of small instances, singularities put together, and with the ability to engage in ginkgo walks on a regular basis, we are increasing our own knowledge of ourselves and of the journey that we all are on every day of our lives. Although we're not living in the time of Basho, we can channel a little bit of his collaborative spirit in with our own experiences in haiku writing and especially in ginkgo walks, because you never know when you'll meet a friend along the way. Basho traveled all across Japan on his many adventures, and he writes about many of the people that he meets along the way. On your own ginkgo walks, you can meet new people and perhaps new creatures as well.
In a way, the ducks that you meet along your ginkgo walks at Emory are kind of like the Zen masters that Basho encountered along his journeys throughout Japan. They bring you inner peace, and they're always there to welcome you. Though unlike the Zen masters, instead of offering you food, you generally have to offer them food to gain their hospitality.
Animals really aren't all that different from humans. They can communicate, they can express arguably some emotion, they can express their wants and their needs, their desires, and just like humans, sometimes animals can be cruel. They can do things that to us may not make sense, may not seem friendly. However, also like humans, they can get along very well, and they can have a sense of camaraderie. And there's definitely a sense of connection there whenever you see animals in their own natural habitat joining one another as seems fit, and you can feel that sense of connection there yourself. Because remember, all in all, our DNA is not perhaps that different, and maybe we all just come from the same Mother Earth.
And imagine this. You've already learned all this and more about these ducks prior to actually getting to the site for your field report. In fact, on your ginkgo walk, you have observed so much, and the great thing about this is that now with the internet, you have the ability to look up the flowers, the animals, and the other sights and sounds that you have seen on your ginkgo walk so that you can find out as much information as you possibly can about them. The haiku has assisted me in that it has helped me put my thoughts into words.
The haiku has helped me in that it's taught me to get outside of my personal frame of reference and see the world in a bigger way. Abandoned greenhouse. Wilted plants crown age-chipped pots. Sad, forgotten kings.
Amarillo rose. Sunsets I find grateful. Clocks in pain benign.
To write haiku is to be inventive. You have to be able to mix up different images to talk about charcoal apples or yellow oceans, to be able to mix hues together and present an image of life that only you know. Life keeps chugging onwards, and so does our journey with the haiku. Learning about the haiku and its connection to nature and personal meditation has definitely taught us a lot about ourselves, how to find personal peace, and how to evaluate our own self-growth. What began as a classroom project will continue as a lifelong journey.
The knowledge that we've gained from learning about the haiku, and in particular learning about Basho's style of the haiku, can be applied across disciplines and is something that we will be able to consistently utilize not only in the academic parts of our lives, but also in terms of the spiritual parts of our lives and how we interact with the world around us. Basho's unique connection to nature and the way in which he has integrated both prose and poetry into his narrations of his life has been inspirational to me, and I know that it has been inspirational to all of us throughout this course.
So, whenever you hear of a poem, your thoughts whenever you hear poem?
There's really no, I guess, teachers always tell you there's no right way to interpret it, so, generally there are, but
also peaceful, because there's some sort of inspiration behind it, so you know somebody's put some work into this, even if you can't interpret it, that somebody has put a lot of thought into it, and that they've gotten their thought process out for you to look at.
And to interpret in your own way, which I feel like is part of the purpose of it.